hearts undergo a lot of work. They work hard. So the heart is at the heart of this matter. So it pumps the blood into all the veins and arteries and tubules and arterioles and capillaries. These are all part of our circulation system. We cannot exist without blood. And in order for blood to be circulated, we got to have a heart that's beating well. Did you know God set our hearts in motion? He started it, right? It wasn't just a body there and he said, okay, be well and live. He gave us the breath of life and set our hearts in motion. And so he was directly responsible for keeping that heart in motion. But we get in the way so often by the things we do and the things we put into our bodies. I like to start all presentations with the foundation of the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Interesting. It's not mirrored. No, this will work. I'll turn your attention instead to Proverbs 4. Verse 20 through, I think, 22. And it states basically, and I'm paraphrasing, is, my son, attend to my words, incline thine ear to my sayings, let them not depart from thine eyes, keep them in thine heart, for they are what? Life to those that find them, and health to all their flesh. This is the word of the Lord speaking to us. If we keep God's word in our heart and incline our ears to them, there are life to those who find them and health to our bodies. He is telling us plainly what it is that actually keeps us alive and in health. His words, if we follow them, right? And what did I say earlier this morning also? Though the facts of physiology are now so generally what? Understood, there is an alarming something, indifference, and we go to the principles of health. Even those who have a knowledge of these principles, there are few who put them into practice. Is he talking to us? Maybe. Inclination and impulse is followed as blindly as if life were controlled by mere chance rather than by definite, unvarying laws. You know, our bodies are governed by these laws. So as I said before, the heart pumps. And when the heart pumps and squeezes down, blood flows out of the heart and into the thousands of miles of vessels of the circulatory system. So when the doctor measures your blood pressure, what he's measuring really is the pressure of that blood in circulation. How hard is the heart having to push that blood on through? And so you'll see a blood pressure measurement in two numbers, generally speaking. Can y'all see that? So there's a top number, there's a bottom number. Sometimes you'll, on the automatic cuffs, you'll see a heart rate, but usually if you have those that you have to, pump up, you'll have to check the heart rate separately. So let's take a look at the blood pressure measurement on the far left. If you're looking at the screen, can you see it? Can somebody read it out?
203 and 114.
Okay, so the top number is 203, and the bottom number is 114. Okay, so would you say that's a good blood pressure? No, that's a resounding no. Okay, so why do you say no? Diastolic is too high. So the top number is the systolic, and the bottom number is usually the diastolic. So the top number, right? Pardon me? They're both too high. Exactly. Both too high. So the top number measures the heart working, pumping, right? And then it has to relax. And then it pumps again, and then it has to relax. This is how, if you feel your heartbeat, it goes bump, 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 bump. So push, relax, push, relax. So that's the measurement of the blood pressure. Once when it pushes the blood out, then once when it relaxes. So top number, bottom number, systolic, diastolic. Those two words are familiar to people in the medical profession because when you see something like a flat line and they say asystole, that means that heart ain't beating no more. There is nothing there. Thank God we're not in that position and will not be till Jesus comes. But let's look at that number again, 203. Now, we said that's no good, too high. And Sister Francis said they're both too high. What about the one in the middle? Still high. Okay, which one? Both of them. Okay, good. What about the last one on the right? Good. All right. So the average blood pressure, they say normal. I don't know why they say normal, because then it means everything else is abnormal, which is not strictly true. But the average blood pressure for an adult would be 120 over 80. In the past years, it was 130, okay? But they keep moving these guideposts a little further back seems like every couple of months. But anyway, the 130 over 79 would be acceptable, right? Everybody agreed? So the other two are clearly out of line. And it means that, well, these two people here have a slight problem, right? What would you say is their problem? Hypertension. Very good. Now, what is the normal response if you go to the doctor and you get those two readings, any of those two on the far left? What did you say, Pastor? Yeah. So you'll probably go home with a prescription or two, right? Prescription or two. But this afternoon, hopefully by the end of our discussion, if anybody that you know suffers from high blood pressure, you'll be able to help them with some simple remedies. So clearly, these two blood pressures are approaching a problem stage. It means that their hearts are beating way too hard. The pressure to push the blood around has become high. You know, if you have a hose and you got a pipe flowing through it, it flows free. But I remember in the summer I was watering my garden and suddenly the water flow was diminished, and I'm wondering, well, what happened? Unbeknownst to me, my grandson had placed a heavy thing that I asked them to bring outside for me on the hose. So the flow was interrupted, and that caused the water to come out in like spurts instead of a full flow. Same thing with our heart and our arteries. If your heart is functioning hard, but your arteries are not as clear as they should be, or they have become stiff and hard. You know, usually if you have something pliable and soft, it's easy to push any liquid through it. But if the walls of whatever it is you're trying to flush liquid through become less pliable. Let's say, for example, you got a balloon in one hand. How easy is that to fill up with water or any liquid? Easy, right? Because a balloon is pliable plastic. What about a hot water bottle? You know what they are? You don't see them much these days. the old ones were like rubber. Really said, you really can't fill them up that easily. You gotta really hold on and have a pipe with a good flow to get water in it. So I'm saying that the quality of the arteries and the veins and the capillaries that you're trying to let your blood flow through to feed every cell in your body matters also with hypertension. One doctor says there are only two things that feature, and we already said what it is. That is your cardiac output, whatever your heart pumps out, and then the resistance of your blood vessels. So if your blood vessels over time have become stiff, hard, or worse yet, blocked, but sometimes the food we eat don't contribute to nice, clean flowing arteries. They leave fatty deposits on these arteries, depending on what we eat every day, right? And so the tube in which you're trying to have this heart pump is becoming a little narrow and a little narrower on a regular basis, on a daily basis, if we don't change what we eat. So those two things are the only things that matter when it comes to how high or how low your blood pressure is. The state of your heart and the state of your arteries and veins, okay? So I am looking, we already established what high blood pressure is. So we're not going to go over that again. Nowadays, anything over 130 in the systolic area is considered high. Now, this is what used to be for many years. Now, anything over 120 is considered mildly hypertensive. I smile when I read this information because it's so obvious what they're doing. Yeah, medicating people earlier and earlier because blood pressure, the thing is, blood pressure is dynamic. You can go to the doctor's office this morning and get a measurement of 130 over 90. And you think to yourself, wow, that's a little. Sometimes they say, okay, let's recheck before you go. And God forbid if it's higher then you're on medication, you know. The problem with the medication is that when people leave the doctor with this thing in hand, this piece of paper for a medication, they think they have the problem handled. But is it? Is it? No. I've worked in this arena for quite some time. What happens is they take the medication, or some people not. They take the medication, 2-3 months later, they come back for the next visit. What happens? It's still high. Oh, we have to add another medication. Invariably, we have to add. The problem is addressing the numbers. Let's go back here. Addressing the numbers. But see, the numbers is not necessarily the problem. You know, if you have a sink overflowing, like if your bathtub is overflowing because one of the kids left the tap on, right? And the bathtub is just water everywhere. What's your first instinct? Somebody said mop it. You turn the tap off. Because if you try to mop with the taps that are running, what happens? You don't do anything. The medication. You address the numbers to make it look nicer. You know, that's basically back for the doctor's note, and so that he could say, I did what was required. Okay? But you have not addressed the issue. What is behind that? What is causing that high blood pressure? If you don't address the cause and just the numbers, you're wasting time. And while you waste time, the blood pressure, the high blood pressure is still causing havoc. We want to not be that kind of accepting of the status quo. So we've established that, okay, maybe your blood pressure is higher than you'd want it. Here's what I would suggest. And let me say this before I say anything else. I am not a doctor. Nothing I say this afternoon can be construed as a preventive, maybe preventive, but not a prescription. Okay? Not a prescription at all. Nor is it a diagnosis. Okay? No diagnosis for me. So I'm saying you've checked your blood pressure in the doctor's office and you're 140 over 90. And he's already said, well, come back in 2 weeks. If you're still the same, we're going to have to put you on medication. You think, we'll see. All right? What you need to do is start a journal for yourself. If you have a blood pressure cuff at home, you need to check your blood pressure like 3 times a day, morning, noon, and in the evening. I wouldn't say just before bed, but in the evening, sometime. Write it down. Next day, same thing, same time, same arm. Okay? So you have consistent results. Because generally, like I said before, blood pressure doesn't stay static. It changes throughout the day based on what you're doing, what activity you're involved in, what you've been eating. Okay? So you want to keep a record of that. What you do then is get an average of all those numbers. So you add all the numbers up, and then you divide it by how many times you did your blood pressure. You get an average. That'll give you a better picture of whether your blood pressure is staying high, or it's fluctuating, getting low all the time, or that was just a one-off that when you went to the doctor's office. Maybe you have white coat syndrome. You know about that, right? When you go to the doctor, you're so anxious about what they're going to say, you just get agitated right away, so your blood pressure is always high. There are some people like that. And I said that to a doctor once, and he said, oh, that's a myth. I thought, okay, science backs it up, though. So get your own average so that you can say, okay, here's what I've checked out last 3 days, last week, or whatever. And you have your own information to back up what you say. So you check your blood pressure and it's high, and you want to know what is the cause. At this point, I really want to mention something that here of late you hear a lot about, and I hope it's up there, and that's the metabolic syndrome. It's a disease. A disease, it's not. They're all part of the same problem. They're all part of the typical American lifestyle diseases, okay? But this metabolic syndrome has been getting a lot of airplay here of late because there are a cluster of conditions all with the same background, same common denominator. That includes high blood pressure. You see that there? Triglycerides. How many people know what triglycerides are? Fatty, it's lipids, right? It's part, when you do a cholesterol test, go home and look at your last labs. You'll see your total cholesterol is made up of basically 3 main things: triglycerides, LDL, which is the low density lipoproteins, and HDL, high density. What you want is for your triglycerides to be low, your low density to be low, but your high density to be high, greater than 50. So anyway, high blood pressure, triglycerides, and here you see them, HDL, all part of the same thing. High fasting glucose, this refers to diabetes, right? If your A1, if not A1C, but your fasting glucose is consistently over 100, you're pre-diabetic. You need to bring some things back in line. Waist circumference. This is really interesting. If men have a waistline of greater than 40 inches, beware. Women, if it's greater than 35, still beware. And sometimes, there are skinny people who don't fit into that mold, but still have high blood sugars, fasting blood sugars too. And those people probably carry some visceral fat. You know what's visceral fat? Belly fat on the inside, So you don't see it. But these things come in a cluster. High blood pressure, high triglycerides, little belly fat, and a high fasting glucose. Well, now, we're going to talk mostly about the high blood pressure, but the high blood sugar also will respond well to what we're about to get into. I just want to make you aware of metabolic syndrome, because frequently when we see patients come into the doctor's office, nurses are supposed to do a visual assessment as well as a verbal assessment. We ask you this, that, the other, but we take a look also. And we've learned to pick up on certain things. If somebody, especially women, postmenopausal women, come in with large tummies, who are not pregnant, or they come in with swollen feet. Thank you, Sister Janet. Swollen feet. You're looking for some things right away. Certain lab values are going to be off, because this is the general picture of how they present in the office. And if you check them and their blood pressure is above 130 over 80 or 120 over 80, well, they fit at least three things right away. The waist is a little too big. They already have some swollen ankles. Their triglycerides, you have to wait till the labs come back. More than likely, they'll be off. And their blood pressure is a little up. So they have what's commonly referred to now as metabolic syndrome. But dealing with just the high blood pressure, if you treat high blood pressure yourself, you'll also get rid of these other situations. Okay, so just want to make you aware. So if you hear that word again, you'll know what they're talking about. It's just that cluster of conditions. So we know what's high blood pressure. We know that there are several causes of high blood pressure. I want to try to see if I'm afraid to get out of this, because I have a slide. I have this. I don't know if it shows up here or not. Okay, probably won't, but I had created this slide some time ago. Sister Diane, can I switch to pages at this point? Okay, oh great, I'll just leave it up then. So anyway, what are some of the things that cause high blood pressure? Anybody? Too much salt? Okay, so let's deal with it one by one. Let's talk about salt. We need salt, don't we? Yeah, don't worry about going on a salt-free diet, please. No, people are in the hospital because of those. So we need salt. What we don't need is too much salt, because it is estimated that we need no more than maybe 1.5 milligrams per day. The average American takes in close to 3,000. 3 milligrams. So we have to cut back. What I say is, try not to use regular salt that you buy in the store. that really has very little value except to add sodium to your diet, which is good, but too much is not so good. Whereas if you use the Celtic sea salt or you use the Himalayan salt, they have added minerals there, the minerals that come from the sea, that is good for our bodies, you know, and that will keep your blood pressure where it ought to be, not by itself, but if you use the minimal amount and you use these types of salt instead of the regular salt that you see, because that regular salt that you see in the supermarket has been denaturized, if you want to say. It doesn't have nutritional value except to say it's salty, sodium. So salt is a culprit. Try to minimize your salt intake if you recognize that this is a problem for you. What else? Weight. You know which one we left off here on this thing is obesity. And when you think of obesity, you think of like huge people, right? Yeah, but a little extra weight, you'd be surprised, losing just 5 pounds would make such a difference in your life with all these labs. Some people say, oh, it's hard for me to lose weight, it runs in the family, la, 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 la. Yeah, everybody can stand to lose a little bit. Probably Pastor and Sister Diana and Brother West. We'll probably leave Brother West alone. Brother West, you got extra pounds you need to lose? Do you have extra pounds you need to lose? No. No. Yeah, so yeah, just 5 pounds will help take your blood pressure down. Okay. What's something else? So salt, obesity, family history for the high blood pressure thing. I mean, okay, we're gonna come. We're coming to those two. Family history. That's what I was gonna get to, Sister Marge. Marlene said family history. I beg to differ on the family history because my family history was, you know, my dad had high blood pressure. Early in his 50s, I remember his doctor saying, you're going on a diet, and he was kicking and screaming. He was not wanting to do it, and my mother was insisting, and she, you know, put him on that diet, and he started walking long distances in his free time and completely took himself off of blood pressure medication. So family history, less of an issue. As they say, you know, that might load the gun, but who pulls the trigger? Us, you know, the way we live and what we eat. So no, but African Americans, as Mark said, being Black, have a higher predisposition to high blood pressure. And we could stay all afternoon talking about why this is so. It could be anything, socioeconomic reasons, the middle passage, stored stress, okay, from traumas aplenty. So if you're African American, just know that you have a high predisposition and take precautions, right? So what else? We've said too much salt in the diet. I can't hear you. Lack of exercise. Awesome. You know something? I never thought of exercise as something that I would want to do. It seemed to me like I was busy all day doing this, that, the other, and that was enough. Proved me wrong. So now I like to walk. And when it's cold, I'm not walking, don't like the cold. So I have a rebounder and I set it in a central place and I get on that. Okay, that's my exercise. Every day. And I know people, like I have a brother-in-law, he has high blood pressure and I'm talking to him and trying to And he says, oh, but I'm busy all day at work. I work hard. And so I don't need exercise. I said, but you're working hard is sitting in a one of those things that lifts stuff and puts it. You're sitting, so no, it might be hard work, but the machine is doing the hard work. You're just directing it. So evaluate yourself. Are you doing enough? Activity is the law of our being. That's how God created us. He didn't put Adam and Eve in the garden and say, okay, go sit under that shade tree till I call you. No, he set them to work, naming animals and flowers and, checking the vegetation and things like this. So we need activity, and every day, people would come into the clinic and they would say, oh, blood pressure high, and I've tried exercise. I go to the gym. How long you spend in the gym? Well, like 25, 30 minutes. Now, if you already have high blood pressure, 25, 30 minutes is not doing a whole lot for you. You need an hour. An hour. Now, you don't have to be intensely running on the treadmill for an hour. That would wear out the best of us. But you need purposeful exercise. Ellen White says walking is the best exercise. I have found that to be true. It's also beneficial depending on where you walk. I like to go in the park. You see the ducks on the lake. You meet people, not too many, but people. You don't want to be walking in a crowded space. And the nature, the scenes of nature, so relaxing. You can talk to God while you walk, So I highly recommend walking. If you can't do it for 30 minutes because of your schedule, every day, except of course Sabbath, you can try doing an hour for like 3 days out of the week. You can find at least 3 hours a week to do some purposeful walking or any exercise that you like. In the summer, there's so much swimming, biking, cycling. Believe it or not, in Brooklyn, we had some bicycles. My husband loved riding. I rode all my life in Guyana. I didn't want to ride again here. We had a car now. What are we doing? But we had bikes, and every now and then we take it to the park with kids. So biking, it's fun, okay? So lack of exercise, one cause. So what else, Sister Darren? You said water, a lack of water. I have to tell you that this is my favorite thing. That easy to tell people, I say when they come in and say, oh, how hard it is to lose the weight and get their blood pressure under control. How much water have you drunk today? Oh, I had a glass this morning. It's 12 o'clock in the day. What about the rest of the day? Oh, I probably have another one later on. And so one lady told me, yeah, I drink water when I'm thirsty. I said, by the time it gets to thirst, you're already dehydrated. When you feel thirsty, that's your body saying, help, I'm dehydrated. So don't wait for that feeling of thirst. Just set yourself on a schedule. My daughter has a big thing, and it's graded, graduated, how many ounces it is. Hour number 1, hour number 2. And she says, oh, I have a reminder on my phone. So it alarms every time I'm supposed to drink some water. And she drinks the water. That's how she gets it in. Me, I have to do something like that because I drink, but it's not enough. We don't want to be dehydrated. That is one of the primary causes of high blood pressure. And people say all the time, oh, I drink 4 of those containers Brother Ragland is drinking right now. Yeah. I said, but that's not enough. You need more in order to bring the blood pressure that's already high down. So what essentially is that water doing for us? It's causing the blood to flow. Remember, we talked about what causes high blood pressure is that heart having to work harder because your blood, number one, is sluggish because you ain't got enough water in there. You know, after surgeries, what do they put you on? They put you on blood thinners, right? Heparin. Only visit the hospital and have to stay overnight. You're getting heparin. I said, what is that for? Well, because you're lying down, your blood tends to pool and gets, I'm like, no, I'll get up. Don't worry. Walk, drink a lot of water. It's hard to OD on water, you know, it's hard. So drink more water. All right, so basically with that, we've talked a lot about what causes the high blood pressure. How about, how do we reverse it? How do we reverse it? You ever heard of New Start? Anybody ever heard of New Start? We've all heard of New Start many, many times. How many of us actually follow it though? It's just not a nice thing to know about. It's a nicer thing if we follow it. And we know what it is, right? Nutrition, what's E for? Exercise, W for water, S for sunshine, T, trusting God. Well, temperance actually, one of the T's is temperance. The other T is trusting God. Rest, oh, so important. Remember we talked about that some last year sometime? Lots of people, you would be surprised how many people do not sleep well. From time to time, I do have a problem with sleeping through the whole night, but I will fall asleep instantly. You know, I just will wake up early. Like if I go to bed at 9:30, for sure, 4 o'clock, I'm awake, wide awake, and I'm looking around like, what's to be done? What can I do if, you know, so wide awake at 4 o'clock, but now I just say, okay, the Lord probably wants to tell me something, okay? And so I use the time with getting into lesson study or whatever book I'm reading, I'm reading through Prophets and Kings, and that has proven to be such a benefit. I enjoy that book, Prophets and Kings. So I'm saying you need at least 8 hours, okay, of rest, good rest. One thing that helps with rest, and I've tried it, it's somewhat okay, is magnesium. Heard of magnesium? Mm-hmm. Very good. All right, so we have temperance, trust in God, exercise, water. These are the standard treatment for any disease. We were talking about diabetes earlier. You want to reverse your pre-diabetes or your diabetes, follow the New Start. Follow the New Start, okay? What else can we do? With regard to nutrients, I know that's kind of far away, so you might not be able to see it. But there, can anybody tell? Plants, nothing but I want to highly recommend vaccine to everybody who has high blood pressure. Buy fresh slack. You know, back home we call it linseed, same thing. You buy that whole. Do not go in the store and buy that pre-ground stuff because you don't know when they ground that. And those things, when they're exposed to light, they go rancid pretty quickly. So you buy the whole flaxseed, bring it home. You got a little coffee grinder. If you don't, go buy one. It's cheap at Walmart or someplace. Coffee grinder, you grind it. Because if you take that whole, it just passes out in your stool just as whole. So you want the benefit, grind it. 2 tablespoons of the ground flaxseed on your cereal, on your salad, but 2 tablespoons at least a day. So I usually do it in the morning. If I have a smoothie, it's going to go in on top of my smoothie and I'm drinking all that down. If not, and I have a salad with my dinner, I'm putting it on my salad. It has a real mild, nutty taste. Really excellent for blood pressure, for bringing blood pressure down because of the omegas that are in there. Also, pumpkin seeds. Very good. Pumpkin seeds, simple little pumpkin seeds. A handful. You don't need more than a handful. I see people roast them and salt them and all stuff. I don't need any of that. I buy them, wash them, dry them completely in the oven, and then store them in an airtight bottle. They'll stay there for a couple of weeks, and a handful a day does very well. So flaxseed and linseed, when talking about nutrition, very good. How about garlic? Yeah, I cook with a lot of garlic just because I like garlic. But people have talked about using garlic. If you go to an Adventist lifestyle center and you have high blood pressure, they're putting you on garlic teas. You crush 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, leave them with the skin on it, doesn't matter. Throw it in some hot water and let that sit a while. You drink a cup for your tea, put the rest in the refrigerator. Tomorrow you warm that up if you want and drink again another cup. But you drink a cup every day, depending on how high your blood pressure is. Now you want to watch your blood pressure when you're doing all these things, because you don't want to go in the opposite direction and bring your blood pressure down to 0, right? Because that's a different kind of problem. So be monitoring our blood pressure. If you have high blood pressure, these are little things that you can do at home. They don't cost a whole lot of money. You don't have to get a prescription for none of them. And they're easy to do. What would stop you from doing them? But you have to be consistent. Remember what we read from Spirit of Prophecy, Education, page 195? It said, even though we know the principles of health, we don't do it because of what? Inclination and impulse. You know, our inclination is to what we know and like, okay? So we have to do these things consistently. Pumpkin seeds, we have flax seeds, we have some garlic, and we're eating plant-based. So things like chia seeds and hemp seeds, all good for us. Plus, look at what features here. You might not be able to see it very clearly there, but it's berries, lots of berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, all kinds of berries, pomegranates, all kinds of fruit. Also, vitamin C fruits, very good for bringing blood pressure. And among the nuts, walnuts are excellent. Remember last year, was it last year? Sister Marge brought us some walnuts, remember? Oh yeah. So a handful of walnuts on a daily basis, and you don't have to eat it every day. You can interchange with some almonds or something else, but walnuts, specifically walnuts, are very good for bringing high blood pressure down if you need it. What about some herbs that are good for high blood pressure? Because, you know, people are always asking that. What herbs are good? I can't hear you. Seriously? Well, I can't recommend that. I have not used it. Don't know its efficacy with high blood pressure. Soursop leaves, yeah. Soursop leaves have been reportedly used for lowering blood pressure. How about hawthorn berries? You can buy those in some health food stores, the actual dried berries. Hawthorn berries. Hibiscus flowers. Yeah, I have a packet of that, but that's because get it at farmers market, but you can get it at regular stores too. I get it at the Chinese market quite often. These are things that are readily available. You know, the corner store, you can find some of these. So you'll have to go looking for the hawthorn, but they're very good for the heart. System. The heart is what you want to make strong and healthy so that your blood, once you drink enough water, flows all the way that it should. Okay. So we have reached the hour of 4 o'clock. Time I said that we were going to stop. Wherever we were at 4 o'clock. But I want to know if anybody has any questions or any comments to make before we actually close down.
I just want to say that I know we mentioned in regards to sleep, magnesium, but it's good also to try melatonin.
Oh, the mic is what they're saying.